This is the Drake Insights Podcast, your weekly dose of cutting-edge senior living marketing insights. Join me, your host, Natasha Drake, for bold ideas, proven strategies, and inspiring stories straight from the experts. Tune in and let's conquer the senior living marketing landscape together. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Drake Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Drake from Drake Strategic. Let's get started. So I'm really excited today to be joined here by Rick Whittington. And he did something this past year that I've been wanting to do for years, as most of you know. I love data. I love research. I love really digging into our prospects, our target audience, understanding better ways for sales and marketing in senior living. So Rick recently completed a complete research study of our audience and our industry called The Perception Gap: Why 76% of seniors aren't considering your community. I'll just pause for a second and kind of take that in. He has some incredible data and insights and research that he's completed that we are here to share with you first to give you that inside knowledge. I was really surprised, I'll be honest, by a lot of the findings. A lot has changed in the past 5 to 10 years, which I've been talking about for a long time. This is a new generation. Things are different. We can't keep doing the same things over and over again that we've been doing and expect the same results, right? We have to make some adjustments. So I'm really excited to share with you. I think there's been a lot of adjustments to things maybe you've heard or seen in past research studies. So I'm really excited for that. We'll have a link here for you to download it. I'll have Rick share a little bit of how to see the entire research study because we're not going to give all of it away. You have to see the whole thing. But first, before we dig into that, Rick, welcome to the show. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, Natasha. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm Rick Whittington, and I am president of Whittington Consulting, and we're a digital marketing agency that's been around for about 19 years now, located in Virginia. And we really started to work with the senior living market back in 2018. We were invited to speak at a national conference. And at the time, we were talking a lot about lead generation and doing that online. And that's really how we learned about the industry. And at about the same time, we actually had a situation in my family where my grandfather moved into a CCRC and my grandmother had a stroke and needed acute care and moved into assisted living. Mm-hmm. And so as a family, we went through a lot of the things that many of our customer go through every single day. So that's a little background on myself and the agency.
So can you dig in a little bit to Whittington Consulting? I want everyone to hear what it is you all do that's different from maybe other agencies, digital agencies. You know, everyone I bring on has their strengths or differentiators, why they do things maybe a different way than others. So can you kind of dig in and share a little bit about what you all do before we get into the data and the research study?
Yeah, I mean, just like everyone else, we do implementation for digital marketing, but the place we start is always with a strategic underpinning. So we come into a company, we really analyze the situation, we learn about the culture of the company, what they've been doing historically from a digital standpoint, and then we also look at competitors. We look at all sorts of different things from email marketing to social media to paid to website. And really where we really stand out, I think, is on the website side of things. So our value proposition, so to speak, is that we try to make a website a sales engine. And so what that means today in 2026 is that you have to have a lot of information on your website that people are looking for long before they talk to your sales team. So in terms of senior living, what we would typically do is we look at occupancy numbers and we say what communities are struggling and then why are they struggling and how do we actually improve that? So in some cases, Facebook ads or Google ads may change that. In some cases, they may need to add content to their website or improve their website. So it's dependent on the situation of the company. It's not a packaged approach. So we don't have 3 packages to choose from. What we really want to do is understand the current situation first so that we can prescribe something that's going to be effective for the business.
Yeah, that's great. No, very customized. And that's very much what I do too. And I think it's really important for people to hear that Yeah, it can't be a one box fits all, especially once we dig into this research study a little bit and some of the findings you all found. So I'm glad we got connected and we're able to work together. So let's get into the research study if we can. Can you kick us off with, first of all, what is the research study? What prompted it? And what did you do to get the data before we dig into that?
So we've been studying senior living, the industry, for quite a while. We've been doing it usually through, Google searches, and we're using AI a lot these days to really analyze the industry. We've actually done two separate surveys back in the 20 teens, and we studied the actual organizations themselves to understand how they were using CRM, understand sales and marketing, and what was going on with their particular organizations at that point in time. And what came out of that is that we were advising senior living organizations. And despite the fact that I do have some personal experience with the industry as a customer, but I don't have experience with the industry as someone who works in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought it might be prudent for us to go out and actually study our client's customer.
Mm.
And what is it that makes them tick? How do they think about the product? How do they think about the situation of getting older and getting care when they get older? And so that would help us then advise our clients a little bit better when our client came to us and said, well, should we do this or should we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And so the data really helps us to ground our recommendations and our strategy for particular clients. And so that's why we did it. This was not a survey that we sent out through LinkedIn or something like that. We actually hired a research organization, someone who has multiple decades of experience in the senior living industry, help us put together the questions.
Mm.
She actually was a client of ours at one point before she left that organization. So she helped us put together the questions. And then we hired a researcher to go field a panel. So as you all know, if you do research, there's many different types of panels that you can get. We actually have verified human responses. So these are all verified human responses. They're not AI panels. They're not people that get hired to take surveys and breeze through surveys.
Yep.
These people were compensated to take a survey, but we actually did some checks behind the scenes to make sure that they were actual people.
No, that's really interesting to know. The significance of the results, I think, is important, and to see it from a different perspective and lens. I haven't seen one. I know research studies keep coming out, but I haven't seen one as recent as this one. So let's dig in. Can we dig into those key findings? Now, I want to just preface, we obviously can't go through the entire report. We'll have a link to download the whole thing, but I do want to point out some of the key findings that you guys found were most interesting to you and to your clients, because I have some too, and I think we're on the same page with some of those, but let's dig in. So the first one is the one I mentioned, in the intro. 76% of seniors have never considered senior living. It just blows my mind, because I've had recent podcasts, right, where we talk about, all of the boomers that are coming. There's such a huge wave coming of all these people. We need to all these things, right? Okay. If 76% of them don't want your product, don't think they need your product, don't think they're ever going to want your product, maybe we need to adjust, like you said, the way our sales and marketing approach. So talk a little bit, if you can dig into that finding specifically, because that just shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, it shocked me too, to be honest. I thought it would be more along the 50-50 line.
Right.
But the big aha moment for me is that your competition is not the community down the street.
Mm.
Your competition is staying at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's a pretty big disconnect these days with the way people think about senior living. They think that senior living is too expensive, that it's much more expensive than staying at home and aging at home. And we all know that that's not necessarily true.
Right.
Seniors also just don't understand the value because the education is not there. One of the things that people are doing is they're looking online to find information, and they're not finding the information they need when they go there.
Right.
So 76% of people don't think they're going to need care. And that's because most people, frankly, don't think they're going to need help.
Right.
We did see two segments with this. We saw the independents. So this would be someone who says, I'm healthy now. I don't think I'm going to need care as I get older.
Mm.
It's not going to happen to me, right? And we just know that that's not true. Everyone is going to need care at some point during their life. Um, but that's just and that was my grandmother. So my grandmother was the independent. She was 86 years old, living in a 55 and older community. She just thought she's going to live out her days in an apartment. And then she had a stroke. And then she couldn't talk. And she was paralyzed and she needed care, right? The other segment is planners, and that's about 30% of people. And those people, I don't necessarily think they acknowledge that that they may need care. They are people who want to know that they're taken care of. So this would be my grandfather, for example. So he early on, after my grandmother passed away, this is a different grandmother, but after my grandmother passed away, he knew that he wasn't going to be able to live in a single family home by himself. He decided he wanted to be closer to family. He decided to look into places where he could move in and be independent and do woodworking and all the things that he likes to do, and then age at the community. And so that's what he did. He went into a CCRC very close to his son, which is my father. And he realized that he was going to need care, and he would rather take care of those things now than let someone else decide.
Right. Yeah, no, that's shocking to me. I think almost 70% or 71%, right, are those that think it won't happen to them. That's a huge number. And the way we're marketing and selling our product and talking about this solution, it's we're trying to market in a way that people don't think they have a problem. No, I'm fine. I'm never going to need it. So the messaging, right, and the ways we're going about it, and like you just said, the education. And I've been talking about this for a while. We are not educating the market. I don't know about you, but like my friends and families, they don't understand at all what I do. They're literally like, oh, nursing homes. It's just a common, everyone I talk to, everyone I meet, unless, like you said, they have had a specific family member go to a CCRC of some kind or a life plan and understand what it is. The most of the general public doesn't. They don't understand that. And so we need to make sure that we are educating this future generation. And like you said, in a different way, in a different message, because 70% don't think they need it. So that's crazy. Staggering.
Yeah, I'll tell you, just from my grandmother's standpoint, she did not think she was going to need care. And then all of a sudden she did. Yeah. And the reason that we started doing what we do is to help senior living and senior care communities tell their story better. Because my grandmother needed rehabilitative care, but did not get it in time because we didn't know what we needed. As a family, we didn't know what she needed. And there was really no advisor to help us along that situation. So we had to basically do what was convenient to her children because they were going to have to care for her. And so she started in an assisted living community, a nursing home, essentially, and never got her speech or her movement back because she went into rehabilitative care, but it was too late. So then she had to go to somewhere else, and she ended up in respite care before she passed away. And so it's just a situation of, there are so many levels of care. People still don't understand what those levels of care mean. And yet, as marketers in senior living, we think about, memory care or personal care or independent living or assisted living. And people just still don't understand what that means.
Right. No, I think that's really interesting. I want to talk a little bit about one of the next things that you highlighted in your research report is this, I'm going to quote you here, is the paradox of satisfaction versus consideration. So can you dig into that a little bit about people don't think they want it. They have a poor perception of what senior living is compared to how people rate their experience, right, when they're in the community. Because I thought that was really interesting as well.
Yeah, well, you mentioned 76% don't consider senior living, but yet when they do move into senior living, there is a very high rate of satisfaction among those residents. So roughly 8 in 10 feel that their experience is either good, very good, or excellent.
Yeah.
And so what we also know, and we didn't include this in the report, but one of the questions we asked is socialization important as you get older? And overwhelmingly, people said yes. So I think it's interesting to know how that number will change as Gen X gets to that age and starts to need care, because I don't think they're quite as social because we have mobile devices and things like that. So that probably is going to change over time. But right now, people that aren't considering care, once they move in, they have a very good satisfaction rate. And so they enjoy the community, they enjoy the socialization, they enjoy the opportunities to do hobbies and learn new things. You hear these days of senior living communities offering college courses where people can learn new things,
Right.
or they can try different hobbies and skills. So there's just so much good going on at these communities. And yet people don't hear that enough. They still have the stigma of
Yep.
the nursing home,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, no, I think that's you've hit the nail on the head with that. I think we need to, we talk about reviews, we talk about pushing reviews, and that's great, right? Wonderful. But it's the stories, it's getting that out there, it's getting it into the mainstream media, it's sharing, at least your local media, right? Getting that out there and sharing those stories. I just think it's really interesting. I think it's because you brought up socialization. We're helping solve a problem, like you said, that they don't know they have. They don't realize they need socialization. They're not going to admit that they need socialization, right? You don't realize that until you get there and you realize, wow, I have all these things I'm doing with all these friends. I'm having dinner with people. Right. You don't realize it till you're there. So that's a difficult thing to market. It's hard to share, to sell someone on or explain it to them without them coming. So I'm just thinking in terms of events, things we're inviting them to, getting them involved early on. And I know everyone knows this. I'm hearing the salespeople say, yeah, we're doing a lot of this. But I think, again, it's the numbers, it's the percentage. It's a lot more than you think. It's not that 20, 30% that need it. It's 76% that need it of your prospects. That's a huge number. So doing more of those as you're bringing in leads and as you're getting them in your database, more of those exploratory action events, things that are going to help convert, ways you can show off your differentiators, your lifestyle, right? Get them involved with residents. All of that's going to help with that shift. And then them residents telling their story, like you just said, 78% rate their experience as excellent or good, whatever it might be. So having them share that directly with them. And then can we talk a little bit about the financial side? I really want to dig into this because, as you know, this is something I talk about a lot. Pricing, sharing, and everyone's like, oh, we don't want to, we want to hide it, all this stuff. I want to share, if you can give a little bit about the results you saw about the financial barriers.
Yeah, almost 60% of people we surveyed don't think it's affordable. And that is true across caregivers and seniors.
Wow.
So that is
Wow.
one of the things that we found. A lot of people think living at home is going to be much cheaper than being in a senior living community. And that's not true. If you think about, you've got to think about a mortgage and utilities and landscaping. You're not going to be able to cut the grass as you get older. And a lot of people think, okay, I'm not going to need medical assistance.
Right.
And medical assistance, I know from personal experience, costs a lot of money when you think about, having someone at your home for 8 hours a day or even just for visits every day. That can eat up a significant chunk of someone's budget. And so they don't think of that when they're comparing costs of staying at home with costs of going into senior living.
Right.
I think that people just typically are financially unprepared. If I could just say a blanket statement, That's not true of everyone, obviously, but I think 3 out of 4 people, I would say, are probably financially unprepared for what's ahead. And one of the things that I think is so important in senior living sales is being that financial navigator, that financial advisor. So this is not someone who says, you should buy these stocks or bonds or mutual funds. What we're thinking here is that a salesperson needs to be trained in how to talk about the cost of aging at home. They need to talk about, it's less about the real estate cost and it's more about understanding the value of what you're getting.
Yep.
So there's so much value at a senior living community that you don't get at home.
Yeah.
And so if it does cost more, there has to be some explanation of why that is. And don't hide anything. Like we talk in the report about cost calculation, comparison calculators. We talk about, just home versus community cost breakdowns and making sure that you're publishing that on your website. People are looking for that information and no one is providing it.
Yep.
No one is providing it. And so if you can provide the information that people need to help make an informed decision, that's going to build trust as they start to consider senior living communities.
Yeah, I brought this up a couple episodes about this because I feel very strongly. It's about transparency and honesty. And if more than half don't think it's affordable and you're hiding it, yeah, they still don't. They even more so believe it's not affordable. But if you give the pricing, like you're saying, you're giving them tools, you're giving them blogs and resources and calculators, and you can have a first home comparison guide on there. You can have compare it to competitors guide. You can have a whole slew of things to be a resource. Now, yes, you can go through that as well with them. Like you talked about, the salesperson needs to feel comfortable. But the more you share that, oh, they're being honest and transparent. This is affordable. I can do this, right? Have some of those tools and some of those quizzes and things that can help them come to that realization on their own. Then you'll lower that barrier, from 60% to maybe cut that in half.
Yeah, I think a lot of senior living communities are scared to talk about pricing on their website.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, your competitors already know what your fees are.
Right.
I mean, they can mystery shop and they can learn what the pricing actually is.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, it's about talking about home versus senior living and other options, because people have other options too. They could move in with family. They could move in with friends. There's so many options, right? I think it's about talking about that, but it's also talking about your market. So if my senior living community is in Richmond, Virginia, I need to be talking about senior living communities in Richmond, Virginia, the price ranges of those communities, what you're getting for those prices, what you're sacrificing for the lower prices. And I need to be very honest about where my community sits in that continuum of pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just really important for people to talk about pricing. I'm ready for someone to actually step out and be brave enough to do a guide like that on their website, where they talk about the geography that they're in and what the high prices are and what the low prices are and where they fit in the middle and why.
Yeah.
That would be bold, but it would also be something that would build a lot of trust, I think, with the consumers.
I'm into that. If one of my communities that works with me wants to do that, I think that's a great idea. I'm very much about that and providing those tools. And also for a search perspective, you want to be the person giving out the information. One of my episodes, I forget which one, I apologize. They talked about they're going to find it. They're going to find the information. Would you rather it come from you or from somewhere else? Right. And so to your point, having the tools, being that resource for them, they're coming. And then if they're not sure who they're going to choose, I tell you what, when it comes down to you and a few competitors, since we know home is the biggest competition. If they've already decided we're going to move from home, it's between you and the competitors. They're going to pick the one that's giving them all that resource. I mean, that period, right? Because the numbers are okay. They're a little bit different. They're going to feel like they trust you. They're going to have that connection with you, that transparency. And then from a search perspective, which I know is more your wheelhouse than mine, but you're now showing up. People are looking for this information. You're showing up as the resource because you provided that on your website. So it's just, we got to get behind it. Yeah.
It's about AI too. So keep in mind that we're not only optimizing for search engines now, we're optimizing for ChatGPT and Google Gemini. When people search Google, they get the AI answer first. Yep. And one of the things that we want to do is provide the information that does really cover the topic exhaustively. Yep. Like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tell me everything. And search engines will pick that up. AI will pick that up. And that is going to become, I think, more of a factor here in the next year or two.
Yeah. And so I've been saying this forever, but here you have the data to back things that we've been saying. So I want to go through it again. So 58.6% don't think it's affordable. I do want to mention this. So I think maybe you mentioned it. 71% think senior living costs more than living at home. I mean, over 70%. And then I think you said half of those 70% think it's much more. And back when I was doing sales, we had a comparison guide that had your cost of home, and we'd sit down with them and let's plug these numbers in. Your actual costs, let's plug them in compared to ours. And this was a pretty expensive community. It was almost always less because, like you said, you're not thinking about the roof and all the repairs and all the things you might have to spend. So I wanted to point that out. And then also you mentioned on your report, sorry if I'm giving away too much, but 74% don't have long-term care insurance. That was important to me because I think a lot of times that is what I hear as a salesperson is a defense right? They'll say, oh, well, I have long-term care insurance. No, they don't. 74% don't. So, and we know that doesn't cover all of these things anyway, right? We know that covers things and there's things that loopholes and things that doesn't cover. So again, that can't be an excuse either. And then you have on here 45% feel unprepared too for aging. Like that's just, these numbers are just, it's staggering, but it's also it's sad to me because us working in this industry, I've been doing this 20 years. I truly believe in it. I know that there's a right community for everyone to be able to age successfully in place. And they don't want it. They're not prepared for it. They don't think it's affordable. Like we aren't doing a good job in our industry of educating the best that we can. So I just wanted to kind of recap some of those because that stood out. I think that's really important for the sales team members and operators to hear are those numbers. So if we can switch down, go a little bit into that crisis-driven decision-making. I know you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning. Can you kind of go through some of those findings you had?
Yeah, I mean, most people are not looking for senior living because they don't think they're going to need care. And 29% of the people that we studied said that they would only consider moving when care is needed. So what we did in this question specifically is we gave some age ranges. And we said, if you were between these ages, would you consider senior living, or these ages, or these ages? And the last option was when care is needed. And that was the most popular choice. People are not looking between, it's not like someone turns 75 and they think, oh, okay, I'm going to need senior living now. They are wanting to stay at home until care is needed. And that is the most popular choice there. It's not about the age. It's about when care is needed. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, I've got this experience in my own family. When my grandmother had a stroke, there was a crisis. And it doesn't have to be something that catastrophic. It could be simply, an Alzheimer diagnosis or a dementia diagnosis, or it could be a fall, or it could be just family visiting on Thanksgiving and realizing mom and dad just aren't quite as sharp as they used to be. I'm a little worried about them being at home. So it's not necessarily age-based. It's when care is needed. And I think, to capitalize on that, I say capitalize, I don't mean to, take advantage of that, but you have to meet people where they are in that process in terms of marketing and sales. And one of the things that I believe really strongly in is being accessible 24/7, 365.
Yep.
Now, I know that you can't have people working your live chat or your telephone 24/7, 365, but there are ways today with AI to give people the opportunity to chat and answer almost any question they have. And AI can do that very effectively and can organize a call or a meeting for you. So I know, I just think back to my mother's experience where it would be 11 o'clock at night. She would sit down on the couch after taking care of my grandmother all day and say, okay, she needs care, but everything's closed.
Yeah.
So she didn't have the time or the opportunity to call someone and talk about this. She couldn't do that at 10 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, there's a lot of stress and exhaustion from people who are actually taking care of people who need care, their parents, their grandparents, et cetera. And so we as senior living marketers have to make it very easy for them to reach out to us and get the answers to the questions they need.
Yeah. And I do want to share, those of you, when you download and you get this full research guide from Rick, he does give insights. So we're kind of giving you that here, but in each section, what I love is, and I should have recapped this in the beginning, you have the data and then you have insights from it. And I do want to, some of this that you're mentioning is really important. So you talked about marketing and sales must be simple, clear, and move fast. I'm kind of quoting you here. Families are stressed. The process needs to reflect that reality. And I just think that's so wise to share with people. I think they think that in theory, but then when you go and you research, you're like, you're not meeting them where they are. This is confusing. This is too much information. How do I walk them through these steps? They're doing this online first. How are we walking them through that? So I just think, again, we need to step back, take a look at our process, do a full assessment of your website, do a full assessment of what that caregiver's journey looks like. And if 30% are in crisis, how are they getting that information? How is it simple and easy for them to follow and find on your website? And then back to the automation and AI. Yes, I talked about this on my last podcast before this. we can no longer just rely on chatbot, right? Chatbot, that's great. It gets it the next day, whatever it might be. It gets them some answers. There's text now, right? AI text. There's live chat. I know it's scary. Trust me, like as a salesperson, like I can't believe I'm even saying it because I think, 5 years ago I would say, no, it's my lead. I don't, it's come a long way and we have to get behind it. Every other industry is getting behind it, which we talked about in the last podcast. We got to get behind that to meet them where they are in these situations. And 30% of your audience are in that stage. You don't want them to, and when you're in a crisis, you pick the first one that responds, right? Because you need something quick. So how are you responding quickly? How are you responding clearly? And that kind of takes me to our next one. Talk a little bit more too. We kind of mentioned it, but that digital first research, like everything's online. We got to just start there.
Yeah, I mean, more and more people are turning online, and we know that from just looking at our clients' website visit rates and the dwell time on websites and things like that. But our survey found that 59% want to see pricing before they talk to sales. And so they're expecting to be able to find this information so they can even make a determination whether they should talk to someone or not.
Yeah.
52% say pricing is hard to find on websites. And let me just preface that a little bit by saying that I don't think you necessarily need to say, here's a floor plan, here's the price, and here's how the price works. I think it's really talking much more holistically about how pricing works. Right. Is there an entrance fee followed by a monthly fee? What's included in that monthly fee? Talking about, again, about the geographic, different prices in terms of geography and where you stack up and why you chose that price point versus another price point.
Right.
What goes into the pricing? Like, why is it so expensive?
Right.
Why, if someone sees a price, they see a number and there's a little bit of shock. And I think we have to do a better job of helping people understand what goes into that.
Yeah.
It's not just about a price to just make a lot of money. There are expenses that have to be paid out of that. And people want to know, what's behind that pricing. So it's more than just talking about a price, but it's really talking about the financial situation, right? I'll just back out a step and say it's really about the financial situation,
right?
And how people are going to pay for this.
And when I met with one of my last episodes with Morgan, we talked about navigating uncertainty. She talked about that a lot and how we prepare salespeople for those conversations. It's the same thing. It's preparing your website for the prospect to be able to understand it. We have been so, especially in terms of life plan communities, we've been so afraid. Well, I need to explain it to them. It's very confusing. And a lot of times when I meet with salespeople, they can't really explain it to a full extent. It's no different. I mean, it is different, but it's very similar in a way of insurance. It's in similar a way of you are paying for something to prepare for your future, but you also get lifestyle and food and all these other things with it. Whereas like with insurance, you get nothing unless you need it. Where it's here, it's like, yeah, it's a bit of insurance for the future. And look what you get. Look at the value you get from it. I'm just so tired of this. Like, well, let's just slap on our starting rate. That confuses them even more because you're like, oh my gosh, what kind of a price is that without that inside knowledge? And so if you're not doing that yet, you got to be getting that on your website. You got to be getting that information from a search perspective and from a uncertainty perspective to give them some clarity and some understanding of what that includes. And that kind of takes me to our next one about language barriers. It's very similar. I think this concept of CCRC, life plan, pricing, go into that a little bit and talk about the findings you found.
Yeah, the jargon that we use in this industry is really blocking people from understanding what it actually is. So 67% don't understand what a CCRC is, and 80% have very minimal or no understanding of what a life plan community is. And so when we talk about these things, people don't know what they mean.
Yeah.
They get confused. And as you know, with sales, anytime you introduce a point of friction, it's going to prevent the sale.
Yep.
And so it's fine to say this on your website. We are, a life plan community, but make it clickable and tell people what that means.
Yeah.
Give them some understanding of what that actually means. I think we just have to simplify our language so that people can actually understand what they're getting.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just want to say those numbers again because it's staggering to me. Almost 70% don't know what CCRC means, and 80% have very minimal understanding of life plan. And That's a huge part of our audience. And you're just slapping those words on there left and right. You're putting starting rates. I mean, think about how confusing that is for your consumer, for your adult child, even who's like, what is it like? What does that even mean? When I talk to my family about, oh, these are some communities I'm working with, they have no idea what a CCRC is. So I think and I talked about this, I think in 2 episodes ago, our industry, we know all the terms, we know all the nomenclature. So we just, we spit it out, we talk about it. I think about this in reference to my husband. He works in construction world and he mentions things. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? Because I'm not involved in it. He's like, oh yeah, I don't think about that. It's the same thing. So again, I just think about more knowledge, more insight, but I'm saying more, but in a simple, easy to follow way. And that's very easy to do, I think more so digitally than in a brochure, because a brochure is like a lot. You have a lot of stuff you got to jam pack in there. Whereas digital, to your point, you can have calculators and tools and quizzes and things that kind of break it down in a really neat, simplified way for them to better understand it. You can have AI chat, you can have AI text, right? All those things to break that down for you. You can have blogs of information that people can have as much or as little as they want, but at least it's there, right? So that was I kind of knew it, but when I'm seeing these percentages and how large they are, I'm just overwhelmingly a bit shocked, to be honest, that they're as high. Like to your point, I was thinking like 50, 60, but when I'm seeing 75, 80% of our target audience doesn't understand half this stuff, doesn't want it, doesn't think it's affordable, thinks there's no pricing. I mean, my gosh, why would they buy your product? Why would they move to your community, right? So just I think that's all we're going to share for today. And that's, again, we shared a lot. I do want to share. So can you give a little bit about how they can find, I'll have a link to it, but how they can get the full research study from you?
So the full research study can be found at seniorcaregrowth.com.
Okay.
And that's just a website we've set up to share some of the findings and thoughts that we have about the industry.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to find our research there. I believe it's on the homepage.
Okay.
I'm sure you'll have a link to it as well, but that's where you can find the research if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that. I mean, ultimately it comes down to just, empathy and transparency. I think those two concepts are really what sales and marketing and senior living comes down to today. And we cover a lot more in the report, things about amenities and what people expect in terms of pricing, details about that too. So it might be good for people to check out. And if you have any questions, I'm also able to, field questions about that too.
Yeah. And I think it's good to talk to Rick about it too, in terms of, I can give you my perspective and my opinion and what I've seen, but I think also from Rick's perspective is how has he been able to combat a lot of these things with what, your company does from a digital perspective. I think it's really important because I think sometimes we hear these things and I think, okay, well, what do I need to do? What now, right? They can't think of it in a digital perspective. So, Rick and his team can help guide you through that process and little chunks at a time and how to get there. So you kind of mentioned it. I don't know if you have any more to share, but is there anything besides what you just mentioned that you want to leave as a top takeaway before we leave for the day?
Yeah, I just think it's about empathy and transparency. Yeah. Those two concepts, as you think about sales and marketing, you really have to evaluate everything under the lens of those two concepts. And if you're doing right by your customer, then you're going to naturally get more occupancy. Yeah. Independent, whether you're talking about independent living or assisted living or throughout the care continuum, it's the same thing. You have to be empathetic. You have to be transparent. And those two things really reign supreme.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I'm so grateful that I get to share all this data and research with everyone. Thank you so much for being on today, Rick, and giving this insight out. Go to the website. I'll have the link below. Make sure you download it, get all of it. Like I mentioned earlier, not only are you getting real-time statistics, but you're also getting insights and takeaways from that and tips, which I think is a lot of times in research studies, right? You just get the data. So I loved this. I loved reading through it, Rick. Thank you for sharing that with me, letting me share it with the listeners today. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me, reach out to Rick as well on rickwhittington.com. And thank you guys so much for watching another episode of the Drake Insights podcast. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. Real quick, if you enjoyed watching the podcast today, please follow me and subscribe so you're notified for the next podcast. And if you have any questions or want to talk after about anything that Drake Strategic can provide for you, please reach out to me, call me, email me, or visit our website at drakestrategic.com.